State prosecutors questioned Sakiyna Thompson about why she stabbed Kayla Hodgson to death inside of Hodgson's Tamarac home 3 years ago. Thompson told jurors she went to Hodgson's apartment uninvited to talk woman to woman about dating the same man. Thompson claims Hodgson attacked her.
Punching me.
Punching you where?
My face.
Where on your face? Point to it for us.
I don't remember, but everywhere on my face.
You don't remember where she was punching you in your face?
In my face.
I mean, this is why you killed her, right?
No.
Right?
No.
It's not?
No.
You didn't kill her because she was fighting you?
No, I killed her because she took the glass from the hookah and slashed me across my stomach.
My name is Naja Hall. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Naja News. Today we're headed over to the Sunshine State in the United States of America to a little state called Florida. Late morning on the 13th of July, 2022, the body of Kayla Hodgson was found brutally stabbed dozens of times in her small Tamarac apartment in Florida. Even for Florida, which let's face it, gets its fair share of disturbing crimes, the brutality of this attack was extreme. Investigators would soon discover that Kayla was in the crossfire of a man with a wandering eye and his bitter, illogical, obsessive girlfriend who'd given into her lethal resolve. What does justice look like when intimate betrayal warps into unjustified killing? And why is it always the innocent ones that have to suffer for another person's sins? When 23-year-old Kayla's family became concerned after she hadn't shown up for her job as a vet assistant, they sent out a neighbor to go check and see if she was all right, only to discover the broken body of the once vibrant 23-year-old on the floor. Police didn't have much to go on from the scene. Yes, Kayla was stabbed with a sharp object, most likely a knife, so many times that coroners had a hard time distinguishing one wound from the other. And the apartment was trashed. Kayla had put up a fight, that's for sure. Normally, an attack with this level of violence would leave some sort of physical evidence behind. But there was no forced entry, no signs of sexual assault, and no DNA on or around her body. The first place to look would be the neighbors, Kayla's known acquaintances, and her workplace. The veterinary clinic checked out, and the neighbors. The problem came from Kayla's weekend job. On weekends, she worked as a bartender and a waitress at a popular bar where she came in contact with just about everybody in the nightlife scene. And if you've ever been to Florida, you know that's a very busy scene. Her colleagues all reported that Kayla was friendly, well-liked, and rarely, if ever, had trouble from customers. Look, no one was gonna miss Kayla when she walked in the room. I mean, look at her. She was an absolute beauty. The idea that she might have caught the eye of a crazed lunatic was completely reasonable to assume. And for a few weeks there, that's what the women of Florida had feared that had happened. A madman just happened to lay eyes on a beautiful girl and gone on a totally random rampage. But police had other ideas. The extremely violent nature of the crime spoke of rage and a loss of control normally associated with a crime of passion. So they turned to Kayla's very active social media and cell phone records. And that's where the alarm bells started to ring. Deeply disturbing messages were sent to Kayla in the days prior to her murder. Only it wasn't a stalker or a man who obsessed over her Instagram snapshots simply because Kayla happened to be beautiful. Those messages came from another woman, a 26-year-old who lived thousands of miles away. But let's rewind for a second to understand how a bartender from Florida and a nail tech from Queens, New York even knew each other existed. You guessed it. It all boils down to a man in the middle. And that's mostly what we talk about these days on this channel. Terry Thurmagen, or Terry N, as he's known by on his TikTok handle. He and Sakiyna started dating sometime in early 2022. To say that Terry wasn't the kind of guy to stay with a girl too long would be an understatement. He was handsome enough, charming enough, and most of all, a party boy who did not like to be tied down. The pair's relationship was rocky at best. One minute they were going steady, and the next minute they would be broken up. But Sakiyna, it seems, had a habit of taking the relationship much more seriously than he did. And when she told Terry that she was pregnant, well, it shouldn't be surprising that he went off looking for his next side piece. Relationship. How he and Kayla became acquainted is an open question. Kayla, who had no knowledge of this other woman, and she wasn't naive enough to think that she and Terry were anything serious, ignored the first set of messages that came through from Sakiyna. By all accounts, she and Terry barely had a fling. She was going on with her life and he was already looking for another girlfriend. So she saw no reason to engage with this girl, this crazy, insane girlfriend any further. Kayla did what most of us would do and she just blocked the girl. She blocked Sakiyna and ignored her. That should have been it. But Sakiyna became infuriated and obsessive. And now she's a hormonal pregnant woman, remember that. So after a few days of this constant barrage of messages, this thinly veiled threats, Kayla then started to block Sakiyna on all of her other social media channels because she had found her everywhere. Unfortunately, logic and class don't mean much to a woman who's already thrown herself into a very unhinged, obsessive need to take control of a relationship that was falling apart.
Sakiyna Thompson told jurors she was jealous of the relationship her boyfriend had with the victim, Kayla Hodgson.
A little, I guess you could say, jealous and insecure.
Sakiyna then went into a blind rage. Instead of ditching Terry, or at the very least confronting him about his infidelity that he was responsible for, Sakiyna decided that she was going to confront Kayla in Florida for a woman-to-woman talk. Because apparently an innocent woman across the country is somehow responsible for the actions of a man that can't keep it in his pants. There's almost no doubt that Sakiyna had no intention of doing any talking whatsoever. You don't do that amount of PI work to find out so much information about a stranger if you don't have bad intentions. First, she found out where Kayla lived, down to the apartment number that was registered to her. How she got her hands on this information is still a mystery. And this is why we have to be extra careful online. She then took an evening flight from Queens to Florida on July 13th, dressed in a pink tracksuit. And keep your attention on the clothes that she was wearing. This is later going to become pivotal in proving where she was this weekend and why all of this was premeditated. When she landed after midnight, she got into an Uber. She was still dressed in that same outfit. But an hour later, we see her entering Kayla's apartment complex, this time wearing a black hoodie, black pants, and a black baseball cap. For anybody looking in, she could have been a delivery person or just another resident of the apartment complex. The baseball cap partially hid her face, and for the bottom half, she held the phone to her ear, though no record of any phone calls on her phone showed that she made or received any calls while she walked through the quiet halls in the morning hours. Everything from her change of clothes to her fake phone call was intended to hide her identity. Inconceivably, Kayla let Sakiyna enter her apartment when she knocked on the door at 4 o'clock in the morning. We still don't know why that happened, but maybe she was just really naive, or maybe Sakiyna forced her way inside the apartment that was open by a crack. I just can't conceive why anyone would let a stranger who actively stalked and threatened them online into their apartment at that time of night or any point at all. We can assume that Sakiyna caught Kayla off guard and pushed the door further open, and it wasn't hard since Sakiyna was a lot heavier, at least 30 pounds than Kayla. Whatever transpired inside, well, we only have Sakiyna's testimony to go off. And let's face it, she's shown nothing but premeditation to this point. So I'm not going to take her word for it. Either way, when she walked out of that apartment again, Kayla was dead, and Sakiyna had attempted to clean up the blood with Clorox wipes. She'd taken off the black tracksuit in exchange for Kayla's clothes, a pair of black pants, a white shirt, a pink hoodie, a white baseball cap this time, new shoes, and a face mask to keep her face hidden. Also in her hand was a suitcase that she'd taken from Kayla's apartment to hide her bloody clothes and the knife in. Before she took the return flight to New York, she dropped the suitcase off into a big garbage bin. Sakiyna then traveled back across the country back to New York in the space of less than 10 hours. She did all this just to murder an innocent woman in a fit of jealous rage. She returned to Queens with a spring in her step, convinced that Terry was all hers now and they were going to live happily ever after as a family. And if it weren't for those damning messages on Kayla's social media, police would not have had anybody to point the finger at. They wouldn't have been able to match Sakiyna's height and weight to the woman on the CCTV. They wouldn't have had a cell phone to match that location or even found the clothes from Kayla's stolen apartment or pinpoint her movements through her credit card transactions to pay for her flights in Uber. It took them just 2 months to track down Sakiyna, arrest her, and extradite her to Florida. By now, she's already into her second trimester. And oddly enough, it didn't seem like Terry, the cheater, had completely abandoned her. Now, don't get it twisted. He was in the streets and still partying up a storm. That much we know. So he wasn't exactly being a devoted boyfriend or soon-to-be happy baby daddy. He got engaged to yet another woman less than a year after the arrest. Terry, but at least he was a devoted father, right? After Sakiyna gave birth in prison, he took custody of their child, as is proven by the motion filed by Sakiyna's legal team to allow her to pump milk from her cell with special arrangements that he would pick up the supply. Nobody want that jail milk. In the middle of all this madness and tragedy, at least it seems like the baby's being kept out of the insanity and being fed and cared for by a father that cares more for his kid than he has any other woman. But Terry really isn't the biggest culprit here. This is all on Sakiyna. She tried to claim self-defense, saying that she arrived only with intentions to talk to this other woman, that Kayla let her into the apartment willingly, and that the conversation quickly turned sour. She claimed that Kayla turned violent first, attacking her with a broken hookah pipe that slashed Sakiyna across the stomach. And she claims that at this point, she deemed that she and her unborn child's life was in danger, so she grabbed the sharpest object that she could find to defend herself. Conveniently, she claims to have blacked out after that point. She described the incident by saying, "I woke up walking in blood." Just to give you an idea of how incredibly brutal the attack was. Furthermore, she admitted to the feeble attempt to clean up the mess, changing clothes and discarding them in an alleyway dumpster, but maintained that it was all done to defend herself and that she didn't call for help because she was hormonal, scared, and feared for her baby. Kayla was somebody's baby. Apparently, though, she wasn't frightened enough to seek medical help for a fictitious wound on her stomach, so there's absolutely no proof to corroborate that piece of her testimony at all. Though I wouldn't be surprised if that wound never even existed, or if it happened while Kayla was fighting for her life like we know she did. The jury wasn't swayed. Given the colossal amount of evidence that she changed clothes 3 times and was clearly trying to hide her identity, they decided that same day to find her guilty of first-degree murder. And as we stand right now, her sentencing is scheduled for December 2025. She's looking at 25 to life or a life sentence without the possibility of parole right out the bat. And we all know that's depending on the judge's mood that day. And she actually got lucky. Florida has a death penalty, but due to her pregnancy and the possibility of her hormonal state, they're saying that that might have made her more aggressive than usual. So the death penalty was taken off the table. Keep her in there forever though. But let's talk about Kayla because we've barely looked at her. Through every one of Sakiyna's murderous, jealous steps, we forget that there was a 23-year-old in the middle of a brewing storm that didn't deserve to be there at all. Kayla was happy. She was sweet and deeply loved by her friends and family. Everyone always talks about her extraordinary beauty, and I am too, but it was only a drop in the bucket when it came to how amazing she was on the inside. Kayla was said to be everybody's biggest cheerleader, and she'd bend over backwards to help a friend in need. She went into the thing with Terry thinking it would just be a normal fleeing with no strings attached, a few casual dates and nothing more. But Terry came with a vengeful tail attached to him that was so possessive and unstable that it turned deadly as fast as Sakiyna's flight from New York to Florida to complete. There's absolutely no doubt that Sakiyna was unstable long before she got pregnant. And if it weren't Kayla, then it would have been somebody else eventually. It should have been Terry though, right? No sane person can do what she did and allow their rage to consume them in such a short time and not go through life without unleashing the violence brewing inside of them onto somebody eventually. The only bright light is that she's not with her child and can't impact and influence them. But let's just hope that Carrie's capabilities of being a father are far better than his ability to be a good partner. He might have been a manipulative partner when it came to the women in his life, but he's not yet proven to be a terrible dad. So let's hope that this innocent kid doesn't have to suffer the sins of their mother, and that Kayla's tragic death at least allowed that baby to grow up without a mad woman who's capable of killing a girl who'd never been anything other than good and decent and kind in this world. They say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but Sakiyna proved that jealousy and possessiveness is far more dangerous than spite. So tell me, what do you all think is going to happen in the end? Do you think she's going to get life in prison? Does she deserve visitation with this child? And Terry, if you're watching this, I know that you're newly engaged, possibly married by now. I hope that you've atoned for your part in mixing these women up. While you didn't have that knife in your hand, you are partly responsible because had you been honest and open with these women, or at least let Kayla know what she was up against, she could have at least been prepared to defend herself. Terry, you've gotten another woman involved in your cycle of madness, and you have a fiance. You're probably going to marry this person. That means your child is going to have a stepmother. I can only pray for this child and pray for everyone's sanity. So what would you guys out there do? Do you guys think that Terry is going to allow Sakiyna's family to have visitation with this kid? I mean, after all, it is half theirs. Or is he going to cut off contact completely and forget Sakiyna ever existed? And would you feed your baby that jail milk? We all know that it's an exchange of energy. And I imagine that Sakiyna must be under a lot of stress and pressure. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think that milk is safe for a young child. So anyway, tell me what you guys think below. I want to know your opinions on this story. I'm sure you've heard about it before, maybe not in this much detail, but this is why you come to watch Naja News. Listen, we're a very small team over here. There's one of us behind the camera. There's me right here. We're editing, chopping this thing up, and getting it all over social media. So the best thing you can do, the currency to us, is just liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please engage wherever you see this video and hit the notification bell because I post these kinds of videos every week. And tons of other content too. My name is Naja Hall. This is Naja News, and I'll see you next week.